you because I don't think there's enough discussion about this. And folks, these next few minutes, honestly, I think it's worth the whole talk just for this. How safe is your community? I'm asking all of you. I know some of you I got to know, but I certainly don't know most of you well. I really encourage you to think about it. I have my own chiddush, my own idea of how to assess this, but I can tell you folks, from my experience, not all communities have the same abuse rate. And it's logical that they wouldn't, because it depends what they do. It depends what the leadership does. How can you assess your community's risk level? And it's important because where you live makes a big difference. And if it's not in order, try to do something. Or if you're thinking about moving and selecting, give this assessment tool. This is Yanki's take on it, folks. This is such an emotional subject, this whole child abuse thing, as it should be. And it's very difficult to have a rational conversation about it. So I was thinking to myself, how can I make this point with no emotion? How can I do it with only Excel and no Word? And I came up with this idea of making an assessment tool. So here's the example. How do you calculate car insurance premiums? Okay, you go to Geico, you go to any one of the main companies, or not so main companies, and you say, how much is my premium going to be? So they'll ask you these questions, or they'll look up your record. You know, how many accidents or claims did you make in the past 5 years? What's your driving record? How many moving violations did you have? What's your zip code? Are there a lot of thefts, a lot of stealing of cars in your neighborhood? Do you have teenage drivers at home? How many of them? We once had 4 teenage drivers. You can imagine what our insurance rates were at the time. So this is an assessment tool that the company, the underwriters of this policy, it's not personal, it's not Word, it's all Excel, it's just numbers. But they feed these numbers into a program. There's an algorithm that kicks out a premium depending on how high risk you are or low risk you are. Okay? Here's where the rubber meets the road, folks. Here's the Yankee take on this. Imagine if you had a health insurance plan, okay? You had with one of the large, Oxford, Aetna, you had a regular policy for a regular health plan. And there are riders, there's a rider, and I mean, rider means like something extra. There's a dental insurance rider, you can buy for extra money, you pay for dental insurance. How about if there was a premium that a family paid in case, God forbid, chas v'shalom, if one of the children were abused, they would get free treatment for life. Okay, that's the policy. You take a regular health insurance policy, you have some other policies that you take, but there's a rider there that gets the family coverage, drug rehab, whatever it is. If a child is abused, how does that adjuster evaluate your community? What would he ask? Remember these questions that we had here? Folks, I think this is the most important takeaway from tonight. Okay? The car insurance, no emotion. These are the questions they ask. If I was an adjuster and they asked me to assess risk, these are the things I would say. How safe is your community? Is there ongoing child safety education? I hope you're answering great answers to all of these. Okay? Do the children get educated? Is there training for teachers? Is there training for employees of schools and shuls and other institutions, day camps, summer camps? Are abusers reported to the authorities? If they're not reported to the authorities, of course the abuse rate is going to be higher. I would certainly charge a lot more money if I was the insurance company, if I heard that abusers are watched by are not reported to the authorities. You bet you about $1 that the abuse rates are going to be higher there. Do abuse victims receive emotional communal support? Meaning they're more likely to come forward. Are they getting professional treatment? So I can list you other things like this, but this is the big idea. And as uncomfortable as it may be for you, I really encourage you to think about not just your family, but your community. Is your community doing all it should in these areas? And I venture to say that if they're not, just again, take the emotion out of it. I didn't say anything about any community specifically. I purposely didn't. Although I have suspicions, and I think I can't stop my mind from wandering, knowing what I know. But just take that all out. Just do it like a car insurance. Say, is our community doing everything we should? Are there protocols in schools? I didn't include this. There are other things I could say. Protocols means is a Rebbe, am I as a school principal, or when I was a Rebbe, should I be taking a kid out for a Slurpee? What's the school policy on that? Does your school have a policy? Not looking to make trouble, folks. I'm just trying to keep your kids safe. So does the school have a policy? Is it appropriate for a teacher to take a child home alone in a car? Kid misses the bus. Should a teacher take the child home if they're alone by themselves? Do bar mitzvah tutors, is it the culture that they go only in a public place or only to the child's home, let's say, while the parents are there? Or do they, go to a shul or a place that they're alone? I don't think anyone should be alone with a child. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think the Slurpee thing is a good idea. It might be nothing. It might be grooming activities. We don't know. I certainly don't recommend that teachers and faculty members do this. But if you have protocols in the schools, then the rules are very clear. So again, I'll be glad to take questions. I imagine we might get a question or two on this. Feel free. Again, the stakes are too high, my dear friends. This is our sixth night together. I care for you. I care for your children. I'll take pot shots if someone wants to take some at me for saying this. I don't care really. I'm much more important that your children stay safe. So think about it. It doesn't mean if it's not being done that the people are terrible people. Maybe they didn't think about it. It wasn't like this when I started teaching. It wasn't like this 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Very few people had protocols. There wasn't child safety education on this level, but times have changed. And if you find this out, I'll be glad to take specific questions later. And if you have a question that you want to ask like this, feel free to block your picture or change your name now so that, just write anonymous or whatever it is, so you can ask an honest question. But I would say that if these things are not in order in your community, try to make it better. See if you could offer to help. See if you could offer to be of assistance in any way. Come to the school head and say, look, I would love to help pay for child safety training. I'll be glad to get some friends of mine together to pay for it. Think of it in those terms, but really assess your community's, level. And the research says that I purposely, on the bottom it says, citations provided at the end of this. I'll stop the slideshow at the end and talk about that these are things that research shows doesn't mean kids will get abused, but they're more likely to be. What's the neighborhood's attitude about reporting? There is studies on this, reporting suspected abuse to the authorities, and it's perfectly logical. The abusers know they're evil and they're very good at this grooming thing, and they know which communities are not going to say anything. Unavailability or lack of social services, meaning support for families. Parents unavailable to children because, they employment or other reasons, meaning that if the supervision of the children is weaker, there's a higher instance of abuse. Again, these are things that the insurance adjuster would say. Lack of support from family and friends for childcare and emotional connection. Unfortunately, the abusers tend to flock or to go to people who don't have that level of emotional support, people who are loners, who don't, kids who are loners or adults. Again, if you have any questions on this, I'll be delighted. Not delighted. It'll be my honor to help. And high level of financial stress. So all of these things, again, all of these things are stressors, and